Welcome to The Passion Pod with your host, Chris Johnson. Thanks for joining us. Now sit back, relax, and enjoy the feature presentation.
Season 6, Episode 9.
Welcome back, friends. Today we're sipping coffee at my kitchen table while I'm sipping coffee with an up-and-comer. Some people don't find their calling till much later in life. Others seem to just be born with it, despite already getting to work with some serious big names like Snoop Dogg and DaBaby. We'll get to that later. Welcome to the show, a student at UWEC in my little hometown of Eau Claire, Wisconsin, an already accomplished photographer, videographer, and overall creative, Sawyer Brice.
What's up, guys? Appreciate you having me on, bro.
Yeah, thanks for coming to my kitchen.
Of course.
Or dining room. I guess I actually separated my kitchen and dining room now, which is dope.
It's a nice kitchen.
Yeah, right? With all the plants and stuff that this cat's messing with. So who are you and what are you passionate about?
Man, what a brutal question. No, I'm just kidding. I'm Sawyer. I'm from Alaska, kind of. I was born there, but I've been in Eau Claire since 2018. I believe, for college, and that's when I really truly found what I was passionate about, which is really just making people feel things through creativity, making things. So that's about it. I've been doing it for a while, but that's when I really started. So
yeah, but you're going to school for marketing or something, aren't you?
Yeah. So there's not much point in going to school for like film at Eau Claire, you know what I mean? So I just kind of stayed with the path. I love college, so I didn't want to leave, and it's just, I don't know, it just makes sense for me to graduate because I have 1 year left, and I don't know, I like college, like I said, but I'm learning all this stuff on my own.
Sure.
So.
Well, we'll get more to that. So from right now, anyways, how can people best follow you, get in contact, see the kind of work that you do? Yeah,
man, probably just Instagram, I guess. It's very simple. It's just @_SOYR. It's a kind of a long story. I'll get to it later as to why. It's just like a misspelling of my name. But yeah, so that's the best. Or else I have a website, SawyerBrice.com. And then, yeah, that's probably like the main two routes.
And Sawyer is SAWYERBRICE.
Yeah. So it's a little weird. I actually have 3 first names: Sawyer, Matthew, Brice.
Wow.
I know.
Okay, so you just said you're from Alaska. Without going into a 30-minute summary, what's like a general 2-minute summary of you're born in Alaska, what happened from then until you getting to Eau Claire?
Well, first of all, I just like to flex and say I'm from there, but I really was just born there and lived there until I was like 2. So my parents grew up in kind of where I'm from, area, St. Croix Falls. Actually, my dad grew up 10 minutes from here in Fall Creek. But they met in college at Eau Claire, and then they just said, whatever, we're just going to move to Anchorage, finish school there. So that's the only reason I say that. But grew up in St. Croix Falls, Wisconsin, small town, 2,000 people. Literally just, there's not much to do. So I kind of found my outlet through creativity once I hit maybe like 13. And then no idea what I was doing, kept just doing it, lots of like GoPro stuff and, very basic things like that. And then once I started to get into my older high school years, I started to actually be like, oh man, like I really care about this. And then once I got to college, like it was just, from there, I mean, that's where it's just every day, that's all I'm thinking about, just,
So where'd the equipment come from? Because when you're 13, like some schools, I know when I was in like even like DeLong Middle School, I think maybe they had, or maybe it was right when I got to North, and I graduated 2008, so this is a long time ago. But they had the little like JVC dad cams that you could rent from the tech department. Yeah. But what were the first like pieces of equipment, and were you doing photo stuff or video stuff first?
Yeah, so I think when I was like 12 or 13, my mom got me a GoPro for like Christmas or something. And because I was into like snowboarding and just, I don't know, stuff like that. So I got that, and so I started with video stuff first. I was absolutely terrible, obviously, but it was fun. Me and my friends messing around, and what I would do is I would like take stills from it and kind of just make them into photos, I guess. And then I was like, oh, I kind of like this too. So I really just did both, I guess, from the get-go, really. And then like I noticed my dad used to film me with this VHS camera growing up, and I was like, whoa, that thing's kind of cool. I always thought it was stupid until I was like 15. And then I started using that. And then I think I did summer jobs to get like my first entry-level DSLR or something. And I mean, from there, it's just building up the best I can. So
Well, gave you, I mean, you got the GoPro, but why did you even want one? Was it one of those things where you like watch snowboard videos and stuff, and like that's where the spark came?
Yeah, kind of. But I've just always been pretty obsessed with like, okay, for example, my dad used to just film everything that me and my sister did growing up. So I used to just be on camera all the time. And it turns out what's funny is I thought I was obsessed with being on camera when I was a little kid, but it was really just obsession with the camera and being able to like watch it back. So probably a mix of that and just like watching snowboard videos on YouTube, and I'm like, well, it's just so sick, you know what I mean? So
sure. So you were doing what was your job that you did to get to the DSLR? Are you talking about like mowing lawns and like fast food type garbage or what?
This was more like it was like I worked a couple of weird jobs. I was like a gymnastics coach, and I have zero gymnastic skills.
Sick.
It was weird. It was just like spotting people doing tricks, and then there was that. It was like coaching, like reffing soccer and stuff like that. So
when did you start getting paid for doing stuff like photography and videography? Like, were you? I mean, right now the projects you're working on, you must be getting paid for. So like, at what point did you stop doing like your basic high school type jobs and then starting making money?
I think it was my senior year, I'm pretty sure, of high school where I got like my first big one. There was like or maybe it was a junior. I think I did a wedding or something too, but senior year I had a gig doing like there's a company called Bending Branches back home, and they make paddles for canoes. So I just did like an ad for them, and they're very corporate, so there was a lot of money, and that ended up helping me invest into the next camera. But point being is like, that was weird. I was like, what the? But I think a classmate of mine works there, and they're like, yeah, my friend here does, you know what I mean? So just the connection of that. But yeah, so that's like the first time. And then from there I was like, oh, I should make sure I am getting paid for this work. So since then, I mean, for the most part, unless it's like a friend thing, you know.
Yeah, well, and that's the thing, right? I always try to explain to people that how business works, regardless of what you think your value is when both people feel that it benefits them.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Of course, I'm not always. Yeah, of course. I mean, like, I have so many artists, especially artist friends that I'm doing so much with, that we just kind of, it's like, yeah, you buy me this meal, and let's just go shoot.
Right. Well, and it diversifies your portfolio. It just depends on whether or not you both feel that it's benefiting you. Friends that reach out and say, hey, you're my friend, you should just do it. Yep. They're not being real friends. They got to look at it and say, okay, well, do you bring value to the table in one way or another? Either you're bringing a new audience, or you're making a connection for somebody, or you're paying them, or you're allowing a new creative project that, again, diversifies your portfolio. There's like a lot of ways to bring benefit, but it has to bring some kind of benefit. What was the 100%. What was the first DSLR you bought, out of curiosity?
I think it was a Canon 70D, which is not bad.
Yeah, those are nice.
Not bad at all. I think it was like Casey Neistat. You know who Casey Neistat is? Mm-mm. He was like the first like big vlogger. He would make commercials and stuff, but I think he started on YouTube and just started to make like daily vlogs type thing. But they're not like boring, stupid ones. They're very interesting and cool. And he's like, yeah, this camera's like the best one, and it's so cheap, and he could have any camera he wants. So to me, I was like, oh, that's cool. So that's what I got.
Yeah, I remember when that camera dropped. I mean, people in the skateboard industry were talking about it a lot too, because I think that did a lot of video stuff too, like at a certain quality where you saw people using handles and stuff with it instead of using
little top handle.
Yeah, instead of using like HVXs and stuff. A lot of people were going that way. Yeah. How did you take photo classes and stuff in high school once you got that equipment, or were you like, how did you learn the basic stuff at the beginning? Was it YouTube tutorial type stuff? Yeah,
so my school was so small that we didn't have any of those kind of classes. Nothing. I mean, the craziest class we had was Phi-Ed, honestly. Like, there was nothing. So, honestly, the first 2 years I had it, I didn't even watch a single video. I just tried to figure it out on my own. And that did not go well. So then I turned to YouTube University. And that's pretty much where I learned everything, mixed with just messing up a ton. Like, so many times I've just messed up a shoot or some footage or something so many times. So, yeah, I graduated to YouTube University, and then now I'm still doing it, honestly, but trying to learn on my own too.
Well, and that's another thing where I was talking about, like, when you're diversifying a portfolio, that it's beneficial, because people, again, they'll just think, hey, you're my friend, you should do this for me, because people do that to me too, and it's, it kind of hurts, because you're like, man, I worked really hard for this, and you're not bringing value. You're just kind of taking advantage. I know you don't see it that way, but that's how I see it.
Yeah.
And it kind of sucks that you brought it up. But with you, like when somebody brings up a different opportunity, like you were talking about you messing up, that's kind of the beautiful part is like if you're doing it for free for your friend and they know it's a learning thing for you, you don't have to feel as much pressure on like, well, hey, I can try something a little bit different. I haven't already done. So I'm not worried about messing it up versus if it's like a big time contract with the client, you're like, okay, I can't mess this up, you know? And I've noticed, I was showing people your videos yesterday because you reached out to me a while ago and I knew that like you're part of a whole squad of people that I know. We have a whole bunch of mutual friends, but I never watched your stuff. So I was like, yeah, we'll do an episode at some point. And then it came to this one where I went to LA and I did 9 episodes of this season. So it was like, okay, I got 1 spot left and I was like, who should I interview back home? And I was like, oh yeah, Sawyer reached out to me a while ago. I know that he's with a bunch of my homies. Like we should just do something. Plus, I was talking, mutual friends. Yeah, well, I was talking to Drew from Flavor World, you know, and he's like, yeah, why haven't you interviewed him? I'm like, I don't know, it just hasn't happened yet, you know?
Drew's the homie.
Yeah, so Drew, thanks for plugging this one. But anyway, so I was watching the videos and I'm like, damn, this dude's like really good. And then I was showing him to customers in the store yesterday and I'm like, check this out. I'm interviewing this kid and the effects from video to video are totally different. A lot of people like figure one cool thing out that they do and then you can see that in all their shit. But all the different music videos that I saw you do, which again at SawyerBrice.com, you can see like a whole bunch of his stuff, even though that's, like you said, that's kind of old. There's still a bunch of stuff on there. It's all different, like type of effects and stuff.
Thank you. That's like one of my biggest goals is to try not to stay stagnant, I guess. I really, really like having a multitude of styles. So that means honestly the world, because people don't notice that. I don't know. People just don't see it. So, you know, some videos it'll be super effect heavy and it'll be like some like Playboy Cardi type vibe or something. And then the next video, it's like as cinematic as I can make it, telling a story. You know what I mean? So, man, I appreciate that, honestly. But yeah, those are old. Those are very old. I have like many coming out that will hopefully blow those out of the water. So, but
that's what I'm talking about, where you end up messing up, right? Because there's no way the first time you try a totally new like style of something that it's going to be to the best of your abilities. And that's the cool part about working with a lot of your friends on all these music videos and stuff is like you're still so young right now, and you've been able to work with some big people, but you're still so young that right now is the perfect time to be building this huge skill set where it's like, I have an opportunity now to work with this artist. What among my arsenal here is going to kind of fit? Like what direction do I want to go? And you have some confidence built up behind that because you've been able to do a whole bunch of different stuff. So I have the question then, and this is one thing I like to push, I like to talk about on the show, because for some reason I think our country's split and doesn't understand this. Not everyone comes from the same opportunity. They don't. Not everybody gets a GoPro when they're younger and even has that ability, right? Think about other kids in your community where you live. Not only did you not have like photo and video class type stuff, but kids who didn't ever have access to get that equipment when they were younger never had the chance to try to do what you do. You still had a disadvantage because you didn't have those classes.
But I also was given.
That's what I'm saying.
So I was blessed for that.
Well, and that's what I'm saying is like, that's one thing to recognize is not everybody has that opportunity. So you didn't have the best possible opportunity. You're not like Mikey Alfred where he like grew up around celebrities, you know what I mean? But you still got some equipment. That being said, why, since you were already in love with this stuff, did you choose to come to Eau Claire where there's not really a huge, it's not a creative college. So why did you choose here rather than going to somewhere else?
Man, I love this city. So my grandma, like I said, my dad's from Fall Creek. So he grew up 10 minutes from here, and that's where my grandma lives still, same house. So I come to Eau Claire once a month since I was 3. So I've just loved it since. And honestly, my family does, it's not like we're poor or anything, but we don't have the money I can't go anywhere out of Wisconsin. You know what I mean? So it was pretty much like Eau Claire, Madison, if I could get in, honestly, probably not. So that or like La Crosse, and I'm like, well, Eau Claire. And, you know, at this point, when I was going to college, I didn't know for sure, like, this is what I'm going to do. I loved it, but I didn't know if it was going to be a hobby. I don't know if it was going to be a career. And then, like I said, freshman year, I'm like, all right, yeah, this is it. But, that's why. I mean, it's just a money thing, honestly.
Well,
Mixed with I love it.
Well, and Eau Claire is like the big city then to you, right?
Yeah, bro. Literally, the town I currently live in has less than 1,000 people. Like my parents live in.
Right.
But yeah, so it's tiny.
Well, that's the funny thing. That's the perspective. You know, I'm out in LA and people think that like Minneapolis, St. Paul is like small. And I'm like, dude, I grew up in Eau Claire and I think Minneapolis is like massive. But then people who grew up in Altoona think that Eau Claire is like the big town. So it's all perspective, right? I know. Yeah. So what was the first, I mean, throwing it back, what was the first music video you remember creating?
Yeah. Man, I don't even know the first one, but the first one I probably remember was, I don't know if you've heard of White Line Darko. No, they're like under Drew's Flavor World Records thing, actually, which is cool. A friend of mine I went to high school with was in their band right when he got to college. So I think I did one freshman year of college or something. And it was mostly just shot with like VHS and stuff like that. So I think that's the first one I remember. You know, it's a fun video to look back on, but it's honestly terrible for my standards now. But like I said, it was very meaningful and I still like watching it. It's just technically it's like very bad. So, but the song was great. They're a great band. So, I
mean, that's the expectation is you start from somewhere. And again, that's why you work with your friends, right? Is like they understand that, hey, they're getting a free music video and they're giving you a learning opportunity. They're not expecting to have something incredible, right? No. So like that's kind of the beautiful part of it. And then they've gotten to watch you grow and they get the huge benefit of having this dude that would get paid by somebody else. Like do a bunch of stuff for them, which is kind of sick.
Yeah, of course.
So you did a book already. Granted, you didn't like write a novel, but you did a book, right? A photo book. Most people wait way longer. So can you tell me about it? How and why you did it? Did you have like a release for it? And like why? What were you hoping to accomplish by doing that?
Yeah. So this book, I called it You're Beautiful. It came out when I had just turned 20. So it was like last fall. And that's a great question because usually you'd wait till you're 30 or something. But this wasn't exactly like a fine art style book. It was pretty much just like mostly all point and shoot film photos of like friends, artists, celebrities, whatever. I was just trying to keep it as natural as I could with the theme of like everyone's beautiful, I guess. So that was that. And like I wasn't going to release it for a few years and everything. I'd been working on it for a while, but once COVID hit, I had nothing to do. So I just made 176 pages, like designed them all in Photoshop and InDesign and stuff. And I was like, with everything going on, and then like George Floyd was murdered, and then one of my best friend's dads passed, and there was just so much like sadness and bad stuff happening that I'm like, man, I kind of just want to release this like in the fall to maybe, I don't know, hopefully try to help a little bit in my own little way, obviously with my like 20 copies book that most people don't care about, but to me it means a lot. So I think that's mostly why. It was almost too kind of like trying to honor my friend's dad in a way too, because like I had my friend, he wrote like the preface or whatever to it. He's a good writer. He's like going to school for journalism, and I don't know, it felt kind of right, I guess. So I just did it, and I don't regret it, but I obviously am gonna wait a while until I do another one, unless it's like a very small specific thing. But yeah, because that was like 176 pages, man. So it was a lot of stuff, and there's tons of pictures on each page, so a lot of money went into that one.
Yeah. Well, I mean, so here's the thing. I talk about this with artists a lot is people are quick to like tell people that they have an ego, which sucks because like people should just stop bringing other people down. Like what somebody else is doing shouldn't affect you. So the general rule of thumb of saying like you should wait till you're older and more accomplished to put out a book. It's like, well, okay, why? In today's world, you can just go on Shutterfly and print a book. Like you don't have to, there's no reason you have to do whatever. And it's for your own progress, right? It's going to be something that's cool that, you know, in 5-10 years, you can look at that book and say, damn, I came a long ways, but this is cool that I can remember these memories, right? So there's really no reason that you like can't put something like that out anyways. Plus, that's another thing that helps you with your overall trajectory and growth. Yes, sir. Because you've already done one. Even if it was like, these are the things that aren't as good a quality as I can do later on. Now you have that experience of how to do it and you have a better understanding. And it's not like you're trying to go get it published by somebody and blast it out and say you're on the same level as other people.
Totally self.
You were doing it right. And that's the cool thing, right? I mean, it's like, if you are too afraid to put yourself out there, unfortunately that inhibits your growth quite a bit. And that happens with a lot of musicians and stuff too, where they're like, they'll create the music, but they're not ready. They don't feel comfortable putting it out. And it's like, you don't have to only put out your absolute best stuff. You should always try to continue to get better, but you're going to slow your progression a lot if you just are too afraid to release stuff. And I tell that to artists too a lot of times, is like, it's not about self-promotion on an ego trip. It's about self-promotion because you like it and you want to grow and you want to, you know what I mean? So you have to put those types of things out. So I appreciate that, like, you were able to have the gusto to be like, you know what, I know that this isn't the best thing that I'm ever going to do, and I know that I'm not going to go out and try to make money and sell copies, but I appreciate this for what it is, and I want to put it out. So, honestly,
the reception was decent, though.
Was it?
Yeah, like I did have a release party, and it sold out, so that was really special for me. But yeah, no, I appreciate that, because I believe in printing a lot, just printing work and seeing it, in front of you. So that's not exactly fine art printing, but it's definitely exactly what you said. It's just documentation, honestly, and that's kind of my goal in general, is just like make people feel things through my art, document, and like, that's pretty much it. So
did you have a chance to listen to the Cameron Davis episode of the show yet?
I haven't heard it, no.
You got to listen to it, because he talks this, we go on for a little while about prints, because he's a photographer.
Oh, yeah?
And we talk about, in general, like the difference between when you hold something and you feel it, how much more important that is. Because when it's in a digital version, most people just see it on their phones. The attention isn't really given to it. They don't have a chance to feel from it. I mean, it's possible, but much less likely. Of course. Versus when you have a print, like behind me, I just got my print from Isaac.
Beautiful.
The one in the gold frame there. So that's a signed print from Isaac Palaio, who was on my show. He's a painter and a rapper and stuff, but his art is incredible. And
beautiful, man.
When you look on a screen, you can't see that, you know, versus like, I just got that print, so I just hung it up in my house. I can go up to it and look at it, and like my mind's blown.
That's going to make you feel something.
That's what I'm saying. I'm looking at it, I'm like, how in the world can somebody make an oil painting this incredible?
And then you see it on Instagram or whatever, and you're scrolling and you're like, oh, cool.
Right.
Like that's cool. Double tap.
Right.
I mean, whatever. Just keep scrolling. And this is like, you cannot help but look at it and feel something.
That's what I'm saying. And I personally paint a lot. Not that I'm like good, but I paint a lot. And that's like a huge part of it for me, is just like being the energy that goes into it, the whole like conversation you're having with the canvas or the piece itself, and looking at it, how you feel from it. So I'm on the same page with you with that. So how can you describe, you, like I said, with your video work and stuff, and we'll go to that too, you have like a really diverse styling, which is cool, because you kind of go based on what obviously the person wants. But if you had to describe your photography, so maybe talk about the book and try to like paint a picture so people can think of it. They're going to go look it up later anyways, but how could you describe it?
I would say, okay, so like video wise, I think I try to not stay in one thing, but honestly, photography wise, I have a style, I think. I'm very inspired by a lot of photographers. Like one is David Sorrenti. I don't know if you've ever heard of him. He was the Sorrenti family is like a huge fashion like family. He passed away, I think, a couple decades ago, but only at like 20 years old. But his photography is like my biggest inspiration, probably. It's very natural. It's like I was saying, kind of like a documentary style. So it's really just being places and just snapping photos, and it's not very planned. Obviously I have a lot of planned shoots, but with the goal is literally just to make people feel things, and sometimes I find that more difficult when I plan things out, I guess. I just like freezing moments in general, so I don't know, I guess that's the style. But to be honest, I am starting to move more into like planned things where I actually have ideas, and I'm like, okay, I wanna create this. And in fact, lots of times I'll like have a dream or think of something by listening to music or something, and I want to create the photo to print. A lot of people try to take photos and like, oh, these are my best ones, so I'm gonna print these. But I've been trying to think of things to print, like make a photo for print. So I'll just take one picture for a shoot, which is really weird. But I'll just make sure I have it 100%, and it saves me a lot of money too, because I shoot only on film, so I like never use digital. You
don't do any digital stuff at all?
No.
Wow.
No. obviously I do video, digital, but honestly, even video, a lot of it is film too. So
Wow.
yeah, it's so expensive, but it's not even some like hipster thing. It's really just that I think it looks cooler.
Well, and anything to set you apart. And currently, like, because it's more expensive and because people go with whatever is like naturally in front of them, you're using different tools. Therefore, you can put out something that looks unique, which I think is important in today's world.
Agreed.
What about like music videos? Like we've talked about how like they all look different and you do a lot of different things with them, but can you like describe a little bit some of that too?
I can talk about a few that will be coming out eventually. They probably won't even be out by the time this comes out, but so, okay, I have one video we just shot that's all green screen, and I have essentially what it's going to be is there's going to be this guy in like toy settings kind of, so it's going to be very like animation style, just really creative, like literally putting him in a toy car and then he's underwater and it's snowing at the same time, just crazy stuff like that. But then, for example, we just shot one that's like a story, and we cast like a kid, a young version of the actor, and it's pretty much just like him growing up, and like just seeing his where he used to be, I guess. So it's funny because those are just totally opposite. It's also like the first song is very like stereotypical hip hop rap, where it's just kind of like, it's not really flexing, but it's just kind of like, you know, nothing too meaningful. And then the other song is very meaningful, especially to the artist. So that's why we made that video like that. And that's with the same artist actually, which is funny. But that's a decent example, I think, of just different. Like, it's just so different.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. Like I said, being able to like go, okay, well, I don't want to be in a box and I want to be able to push myself to do these types of things. You're putting yourself in a vulnerable position, but again, like that's how you grow. I wanted to bring back something because it just came to mind with the photo thing. I think there's really more than one lane with photography, and yes, you can do pose portraits that are incredible, and there's like, it's not like there's no ceiling really for how like good something can be, right? And in that kind of staged thing, photos can be incredible, but when I look at the photos that I personally enjoy the most, have you been involved in skateboarding at all? Like,
a decent amount, but like growing up, it was like snowboarding for me.
Sure.
So honestly, not as much as I want to, but especially lately, I've just been so obsessed with it. Like, I won't go on a tangent here, but I just watched Lords of Dogtown, if you've heard of that.
Yep.
Man, that's different. Like that, I was obsessed like instantly. So point is not a ton, but I want to be way more. But that style of documentation and just the culture around it, I'm obsessed with that.
Well, and that's what I was getting to, is there's this video that was like really famous called Stay Gold. It was in America. It was a skate shoe company, but Stay Gold was like one of the biggest skateboard videos of its time. And when they came out with the release of it, they did a book. And I don't know if it was John Miner who did all the photos, but it was a documentation of all these photos, right? And like there's one pretty famous one of Andrew Reynolds had the ender. That was the first video that he put himself as the ender of a company he was involved in, even though he's like one of the biggest names in skateboarding ever. And there's a photo of him in an ice bath, because he was like already kind of older than everybody, still jumping down big stuff, and so he's like taking care of himself. Yeah, so he was like really on a health grind through the whole thing, and took like that was his part to look back on for his like culmination of his career, right? That's how he looked at it.
And that's got to be a powerful photo,
right? And that's it, is him like shivering in this bathtub. Everybody else is partying, and he's sitting in this bathtub like focused. You know what I mean? And it's photos like that like. That I'm sure that was just a point and shoot, whatever. Definitely not planned, where it was like, oh, what's Drew doing? Okay, cool. And like snapped a little photo, but it's like capturing that moment in time that is like so cool and interesting, rather than just like somebody posing.
Yeah, you know, man, those mean so much to so many people.
Right.
So like, okay, I mean, that's definitely my favorite, but in contrast, like I was saying though, I'm definitely moving a bit towards doing both a little bit, because before I like hated playing shoots. For some reason I was like, no, I don't want to do that. And then I'm like, okay, I'm being too self-righteous. There's so many ideas I have that I want to execute, but you can't just do it on the like, I don't know. So, but that is still the most meaningful to me.
Well, and that's, like I said, that's the cool thing, is there's more than one lane, right? So like you could be flying to LA specifically to work with some people, and you're doing this stuff that you have in mind for these photo shoots.
Tuesday.
Well, at the same time, you can have a little point and shoot or whatever, and be taking pics on the plane and while you're going places, and you can bring value in both. What I do. Right? It's like you can find value in both.
You got it.
So how you worked with a bunch of people, you didn't do music videos and stuff for Snoop Dogg, like you're not on that kind of level, but you did get to work with a lot of big people through Soundset is like my understanding. So Soundset, for people who aren't aware, who are listening from other areas, Soundset is like the big hip hop festival in the Midwest, the biggest one in my opinion. People like Mac Miller, Tyler, like Snoop, big names play it. It's thrown, I believe, by Atmosphere, Rhymesayers Records, which is like the big record company in the area, by Atmosphere, which is like the big hip hop, artist. Slug is the rapper. But they throw it every year. Obviously COVID paused it. I'm assuming they're going back to it. How did you get involved? You didn't just show up and then shoot stuff, right? They must have contacted you, or you contacted
so
them?
Typically, like what photographers and videographers do to try to shoot some of these is, obviously it'd be nice to to have people reach out to you, but I wasn't at that level yet. I was very, very new and basic to it, because I don't know if I was 18 or 19. Nope, 18. So yeah, I was just 18. So I was reaching out. I emailed 20 artists, mostly smaller ones. I'm decent at like figuring stuff out. So I would find their manager or their, whatever, or their booking agent and stuff. And I finally got a hit on an artist called Sa-Roc. I don't know if you heard of Sa-Roc.
Yeah, I know Sa-Roc. She has that song Forever. I tried reaching out just through DMing, which I do a lot to people.
To try to get her on the podcast?
Yeah, I'm like, you're perfect for being on my show. You're like the right kind of audience. And I couldn't find her contact info, so you got to make that connection.
I got you, bro.
Dope.
Literally, once this is done, I'll give you a manager. But so I got a hit back, and it's pretty much her. Okay, so there's a guy named Saul Messiah who's like kind of her manager, but I think they just kind of do it together, because he's like her DJ too. And he like writes with her. So I don't know. I think they're just kind of like a dynamic duo thing. But he's like, yeah, bro, sure. Let's do it. We don't have anyone, so that'd be great. And I'm like, oh, okay. So I pretty much show up that day, and there was supposed to be like a pass waiting for me, and there wasn't. So I was like, oh, what do I do? And so I call him. He's not answering. I'm like, oh man. I just come 2 hours for this, and I was so hyped. And finally he like calls me back. He's like, oh yeah, I'll be there in a second. And he just grabs me and we go in. And he pretty much is like, he's just such a cool dude. He's like, oh yeah, do you want I got an extra all access artist pass. You want one? I'm like, yeah. So he gives me that, because before I was only going to get to shoot just her part. So instead I shot literally everyone there. So it was like Lil Nas X, The Baby, UWEC, Corday, SZA, just literally everyone, like Boz, and I was just so hyped. I couldn't believe it, and I almost lost the rolls of film too.
Oh my god!
I know. I would have been.
What was the story behind almost losing them?
I just kind of set it down and almost forgot to grab it, bro. It's rough. A little embarrassing there, but yeah. So that was kind of a mix of luck, but also just networking mixed with. I mean, I don't know. I think I'm fairly talented, so I guess he saw this stuff and was probably like, oh, that's pretty good. But that was like my first thing working with some bigger artists. Not that like I worked with them really. I just kind of shot them, but yeah.
Sure. So what did you do with that? I mean, I saw some of the videos on your website, but did you end up like contacting like the other artist managers to get approval to be able to put out videos with them and stuff?
Yeah,
or like how did that go?
No, I don't know if it's even, I don't know what I'm supposed to be putting out and what I'm not. Like the Sa-Roc video, Rhymesayers posted, and then Hip Hop DX. I don't know if you heard of it. It's like some publication. They posted the UWEC one I made, which was super cool. And that was like the first time I got published really, and they were like pretty big. So I was like, wow, like this is really cool. But as far as everything else, I have no clue. I probably don't even own rights to any of it. I don't know.
Sure.
I don't know how that works.
Well, so, I mean, you're still young and you weren't trying to take advantage of anything, and you're not making money off it. It's
Zero
just
money.
like, hey, look, I got this. Now you have it in your portfolio. And I'm assuming that they probably want to work with you again as things come back. Yeah.
The thing is last year Soundset announced they're like, yeah, we're not having it. But it wasn't like because of COVID. So like obviously it was because of COVID, but I'm honestly not sure if it'll be back.
Really?
I really hope so.
I mean, yeah, it's the best way for people in this general area to see people like that, because otherwise they don't really come through that much. Maybe an artist or two at a time, you know, and some people are from here like Lizzo, but not in general. You're not going to see people like that around here much.
Yeah, no, I'm not sure though. Don't quote me on that, but I'm pretty sure that it was at least going to be stopped for like a couple years or something. I don't know. We'll see what happens. But I hope so, though.
Well, and one thing I want to come back to with the networking that people don't understand is like, it's all about circles, right?
Yep.
So it's like if you, and this is why I was talking about not being so modest that you're afraid to show your stuff to people. You know, you have to be confident enough to show people your things, however, humble enough to accept that maybe they're not good and people aren't going to like them. You just have to be willing to put yourself out there for criticism or for praise, right?
Yeah.
And by putting yourself out there with the right people, that's naturally going to, like, who are they friends with and who's in their circle is not that big of a, like, luck thing. If you're in the circle of Sa-Roc to then be seen by everybody else within her circle, right? So it's the same way with me going out to LA and people are like, oh, you should go interview X, Y, or Z. And I'm like, well, I don't choose necessarily who I get access to, right? I go and I'm hanging out with these people, their group of people they're around. Those are the ones that I end up meeting and coming into contact with. Those are the ones that end up being able to interview with, right? Like I did. Here's an example on this season. I don't know whose episode's coming out first, but I interviewed Stefano. He was on American Idol, and he's like a big time, like, I don't know if I want to say like soul singer, but he's relatively big. I didn't know I'd have the opportunity to interview him until like half an hour before he got there. Yeah. I was just at the penthouse that day working on other stuff, did another interview earlier, and my friend's like, hey, I'm about to go, shout out Visual Dirt, but he's like, I'm about to do a photo shoot with Stefano. You want me to ask him if he's got time for an hour-long interview? And I'm like, yeah, let's do it. You know what I mean? So, but that's, so I could say it's luck, and it kind of is, but I was putting myself in the position to do that, which is like why that happened in the first place.
It's like the biggest lesson I've learned, honestly.
Yeah. So let's go back to the paid thing. Like, you did the commercial, right? And your friend was the one who put it out. I'm not asking necessarily like exactly how much you got paid. Not that I know that at that age, that's like that, whatever information that can be put out.
I don't mind though.
And we could talk about it, but I want to like ask first, what was the first commercial opportunity like? Like, we know what it is, but what was that experience like? And then nowadays, just for people to have a perspective, because I don't think they understand this, when someone reaches out to somebody like you or anybody else in that space, can you explain what the pricing is and why it costs what it costs, so that way people can have a better perspective?
I'd love to talk about this. I appreciate the question. Okay, so the first one, it was literally like very, I don't know, just, it was me. I didn't even have any lights. I had a entry-level DSLR. I was getting paid way too much. I don't really mind sharing. I think it was like $2,000 or something, which is way too much, dude. Like, I didn't know what I was doing. And I think the video turned out good, but essentially they made the whole schedule of the day, what they wanted me to shoot and all this. All I really had to do was shoot it and edit it. And like I said, zero equipment. My tripod that was $30 and my DSLR. And now I just shot a commercial last weekend for my friend Antoine. He has a drink every year with Spy House coffee out of the cities that comes out. It's like a tea kind of, and everything gets donated to some local organizations in Minneapolis, which is amazing. And that's one of the reasons I was drawn to it. So, he hits me because I did the drink commercial last year. He's like, okay, I need you to direct it. I'm like, okay, sure. Like, I'd love to. I think the budget's like $1,250 or something, which sounds like a lot, but it's nothing, honestly, because for the scenes we needed a school, we needed a teacher, we needed, I think it was like $400 of equipment. We need to hire a DP. We need to have a producer. We need to hire a editor. Actually, the editor and DP were the same. I'm actually probably just gonna help with the edit too, but point being is it took us like 45 minutes to unload the equipment from the car. So, point being, I'll get into like the budget breakdown more, but the point is like $400 of that budget literally was just lighting and stands, which is so boring, but that's how you make it good. So really I made barely anything for this. It's just kind of like going to charity. So it's important to me. And Antoine's my friend and the drink's really good. So I'm like, why not? But the pricing is insane. Like, it used to be a music video budget was $200, and I was like so excited because I just would keep it all. And now it's say $2,000, and I end up making $100, and that doesn't seem to make sense. And it should be where I make 500 or something, but it's just not how it usually works, because I have very ambitious ideas typically. So a ton of money goes to location rental, hiring actors, equipment for like specific lenses, or the lighting is super important. And then just hiring people out. So like a gaffer who's a lighting guy, like a grip, DP, editor, VFX guy, colorist. These are all separate roles. Like when you're starting out, you do all of it together, just yourself. But now, typically, I only direct and edit, or I only direct, or sometimes DP. You know what I mean? So it's the pricing is so weird, and I don't even know the exact industry standard, but I think I have it pretty close through the help of, like, you've had Kyle Lehman on here before. Super talented, really established, great portfolio, like DP from Eau Claire. He pretty much runs Eau Claire in terms of media in many ways for video. And he's taught me a lot, but I have a lot to learn still. And yeah, I mean, point is, dude, there's so much to it. It's ridiculous. And that's what I've really learned in the last like year, is just the amount of people it takes. And like I said, all these roles I'll add, there's behind the scenes photo, behind the scenes video, PAs who just go get stuff, carry things. It's crazy. So, you know, a one person crew is turned into 15 now, oftentimes. And it's a little stressful sometimes, but it's fun.
Yeah. Well, I mean, people just don't understand where costs come from. So there's a few things I want to address there. One is that, because the same thing happens with my show, right? People don't understand when I'm like, hey, you should sign up for the Patreon, which really is like, it's $5. The lowest tier that you can possibly do is what I put on my Patreon. And if you listen to 4 episodes a month plus additional content, you listen to like 4, 5, maybe, plus hours of work that I did. And for the price of you like buying me a coffee as a quick little thank you, like, should be pretty mellow, right? A lot of, but here's the thing is, like, because people will reach out and they'll want to be on the show, right? And then I'm a jerk if I'm like, well, can we find some funding? And they're like, well, why? And I'm like, well, okay, for a couple of reasons. One, between my laptop and everything that I got, I'm probably getting close to $2,000 in equipment that I paid out of pocket.
And then it'll probably go up with the farther
So I did that. Just editing alone, I pay $60 to my editor. So that's a cost, right? And then you think of all of my time where all of a sudden, like, hey, I'm 31, I own a business. Would you expect to pay me $10 an hour for a job? You probably wouldn't. You'd expect to pay me $20 to $30 per hour, right? I don't make even kind of close to that. I am almost 2 years into this show. And again, I do it because I enjoy it. But I'm almost, coming up on 2 years into this show. And I'm still, yes, some money is coming in. And I'm grateful. But I'm very much in the red still at this point. I spend significantly more on the show than I make. People got to listen to the Lamorne episode, which is the season finale on season 5, for free. It wasn't free for me to fly out to LA and go to his house and line all that up and make that happen, right? So
in fact,
cost me a lot of money. I did. However, it's the opportunity cost where I'm like, okay, I'm building something, and I understand that's how it works with a business. So that's kind of like the other part of it is, yes, things cost, whatever. But for you as an artist, you got to look at, okay, well, what is really the goal for me right now? Is my goal to make a living off this full time? In which case, that's why you see photographers do weddings all the time. They're not having much personal growth with their portfolio or learning much, but that's where they're getting consistent income. So that's where I'm talking about with, okay, what's the goal? Is the goal to grow as an artist currently? In which case, I'll accept a job where I don't really make much money, but that's only if it's actually helping you grow. It's not like some random person asking you to do something you've done before. This is like either a bigger artist or, like I said, a totally different opportunity where you have this creative freedom to be like, okay, I'm going to say yes to this, even though I'm going to do all this, 50 hours or whatever of work for free, basically, because now I have this in my portfolio to show the right kind of client where maybe I can make 10 grand or whatever. It's all about like building that up. And then the other thing I want to address, because I've been seeing this on social media, and I want to preface and say, this is my show, therefore I'm going to say my opinion. Some people can like it, some people cannot like it. Not everyone's going to agree with me, and I don't expect I'm not trying to make a blanket statement that everyone's going to
Not
agree
like,
with.
bro, agree with me. Yeah,
Right. This is just my opinion. But my opinion is supply and demand is a very basic business rule. You are worth what people are willing to pay you. You can disagree with that, and that's totally fine. And you can say that I'm worth $20 an hour or $30 an hour or $100 an hour. Frankly, you're not unless somebody will pay you that, right? Yep. So my time doing something else is worth $30 an hour. But if you look at my paintings, I sell them. But I'll sell them for like $50, $100, yep. right? But I'll have 15 hours into it. So my painting skill is really only worth like $5 an hour. And I can say that it's worth more, but no one's paying it. Therefore, it's not worth more. So that's how like photographers and stuff who are like, I want to charge $500 for it. And it's like, well, okay, so here's the thing is you can charge that if someone will pay you that.
Yep.
If you don't have a big enough portfolio yet that no one's offering to pay you that, then you can put that as your pricing, but you also won't have clients. Yep. Sorry, but you're not worth that yet. You need to build up to be worth that. And it's hard to be worth any significant amount of money in something that people enjoy doing, like a creative endeavor, like photography. And it's just a fact you have to accept if you really want to grow.
You're right.
You know what I mean? If you like immediately throw like, this is my pricing when you haven't built much up, you're probably going to stagnate in your growth quite a bit. And you're not going to be one of those people that really succeed. And I talked about that episode before, the one with, why did I just blow his name? Cameron Davis. And he was saying, it took about 6 years. Before he was making good money. And now he makes good money. But it took like 6 years. And that's something that people really got to understand is when you're doing something in a creative space, you're basically being an entrepreneur. It means you're basically building a business. Businesses aren't expected to make money for quite a while. And that's okay. And that's something you have to accept if that's what you want to do. So you're building a business right now. You're not making a lot of money, even though you're putting out really cool stuff. Hopefully for you to be able to make good money in the long run. Obviously that's not the main point, but that'll come with as you continue to do what you're doing. You're still young and you have a lot to learn, even though like I really think you're super, when I've shown people, it's like, damn, this dude is really good. And he's how old? Bro. Like you obviously been putting in the work on it. And
I hate most of what I make, but I appreciate you.
Well, that's how an artist is, right? And like the cool part, the really cool part about it is like where you're at right now is still just like the very beginning because you're so young and you haven't put you've put a lot of hours in a short period of time, but realistically that's like a blip on your overall trajectory. So like you're going to have some really cool stuff. So I got to ask, money obviously could come in. If you wanted to straight up just do commercials and stuff, you could probably make a living already doing it. How come you're choosing to stay in college? What's the benefit that you're gaining from being at UWEC?
My parents gonna hate this answer.
Okay.
No, I'm kidding. It's just the social aspect, honestly. Like almost 100%. Because also I do learn some things, how to market myself and stuff. Because I'm a marketing major, or whatever. But for the most part, I just like the social aspect, and I also like, yep, that's about it. I don't know. I mean, man, there's a lot of things I could say, but about like specific reasons, but ultimately I do want to have a degree, even if it's not exactly in the exact thing I'm passionate about, but I don't think it hurts. I've always told myself I want to get one since I'm a kid, and my parents want me to because they believe in me, but to an extent.
Sure. Are they
are
they helping pay for your college and everything?
Yeah, so it's like I don't really pay for much of my college. It's pretty much just loans. But I'm paying for most of like what I need to pay for in my life, but definitely mostly loans for tuition, so that'll suck. But it's Eau Claire is a small school. It's not like if I went to NYU for film school, what is that, $80,000 a year?
Yeah,
and this is like 14.
Yeah.
So something like that. I don't know. So yeah, I mean they definitely helped me out in terms of that, which is obviously I appreciate very much. But they also would be pissed if I dropped out. So it's like, well. Yeah.
Well, yeah. So, I mean, there's a couple things, right? Like in the particular area that you're trying to go, no one's going to even ask if you have a college degree after a little while.
No,
it's all going to be
that's why I try to explain to them.
Right.
Like, I'm not going to drop out. But literally the only thing that matters is my portfolio, and then like literally just people watching the stuff.
Right.
The videos I make or seeing the pictures. And that's it.
Right.
Literally, that's it. Unless I had like a really bad reputation for some reason, but I'd like to think I don't. So far.
Yeah. Well,
So-
I mean, since you're this close, you know what I mean. It makes sense to just like get the degree. But yeah, it's like with me owning a business, right?
Yep,
I stopped going to college after a year, and I was on the dean's list. I did really well, but it was like no one is going to ask me if I have a college degree because I want to own a business. So what's like it just kind of like, to me, was a waste of time at that point. But
100%.
for you, it's like, look, you're this close, you might as well. You are learning some things. And I try to tell people a lot too, because I settled down early and I don't regret it. I got married at 21, had my first kid at 22, 23, I already had a business and a dog and a house, and like I was really settled. But you don't need to rush through this time of your life, because this time of your life is when literally every door is wide open.
Yep.
You know what I mean? You can do anything you want. You can just go to LA and sleep on a couch. You can do
pretty
whatever.
much the plan on Tuesday. So
that's what I'm saying, is you have it like wide open. So why not take advantage of this time and, so to speak, not grow up too fast, because you're in this position to be able to do that. And that's when like the most growth happens like so quickly.
Yeah.
What are like I said, you're doing a lot of stuff, and obviously I'm seeing a lot of differences, but again, you're still 20 and you haven't been doing it that long. So what are your biggest areas of improvement right now? What are the things you're really hoping to get better at moving into the like next stage?
I think one of the biggest things is I'm a very like idea centered director, and not as much the typical like commanding on set type of guy. I definitely can be if I need to, but it's not really my nature, I guess. I'm more like, yeah, this is gonna be sick, like can't wait to, you're gonna do great, this is gonna be awesome. And it's not like, hey, quiet, I don't know, you know what I mean? I need to probably get a bit more decisive, but so that's one thing, just kind of like, because that's pretty much the quarterback of a set. So I definitely got to work on that. But I just don't have a lot of experience on like bigger sets yet. I think I've done like 4 that were like bigger sets, so I'm very new to it. That, and then I want to shoot even more video film. I really want to get into 16 millimeter, which is some really nerdy stuff, but or 35 millimeter video though, motion picture film. It's like, to me, it's the look of it is just so natural, and the colors are so much better, and I can't afford it, but I want to be able to have budgets where I can hire someone to shoot that. So I guess that's one thing. Like the Lords of Dogtown movie I told you about, that's 16 mil. So you can just see it's very vibrant, but there's a lot of grain, and it's, I don't know. So that's another thing. I guess I don't know if that's really improvement, just more of like a plan. And then let's see what else. Probably like chilling. Like, dude, I'm really bad. Like yesterday, I think I edited for like 13 hours, and that's just so unhealthy, I think. I'm usually okay in the summer. I'm good about taking breaks, like going to the beach or something. But in winter, I'm very unhealthy, and I stress myself out so much that I like get really bad anxiety from it, and I just like freak out all the time.
Yeah.
So I need to chill. I definitely need to work on that. Like I said, in the summer, it's good. As long as the weather's like nice, it's kind of good, but that's not right. I'm like, when in the winter, I'm like, well, what else am I going to do? And then I just become so obsessive about it, and that's just, I think I do well with relationships, but I want to do better. So it's eliminating some of the stress, finding more of a balance, and then trying to better relationships, I guess.
Yeah. Well, I think that's a huge thing, you know, with entrepreneurs, work-life balance. It's like, rough. When you're at a regular job, you clock in a certain number of hours. Yep. For the most part. I mean, there's exceptions, but you clock in a certain number of hours, and you have to get as much of your job done as possible. As you get higher up in positions with places, which I guess you didn't really work with too many people, but as you get higher up in positions with, with a corporation or whatever, you realize that you can't get 100% of your work done in your 40 hours. It's not possible. No. So you just have to like get good at prioritizing and saying, okay, well, how can I best use my time? Yep. And that's what people who are, in entrepreneurship, sometimes, you have to be on the grind for a while, before you are established enough to take a step back. And everyone understands that. However, you have to be able to figure out like, okay, well, how many hours a week do I realistically want to work? Is it 40? Is it 50? Is it 60? Beyond 60 is like not very realistic. So no. How much time do I actually want to do, and how much time per week or how many days per week do I want to spend with friends? And you again, there's always going to be exceptions. Maybe a project comes up that's like this is too good, I have to spend everything,
Yeah,
you know,
that's-
but generally speaking, you need to be able to have a balance. Otherwise you just get burnt out and the quality of the work ends up suffering because you're way too burnt out and you have too much on your plate.
Really got to work on that.
Yeah.
Sure.
Well, it just, like I said, it just kind of bites you in the butt because you're doing all this extra work specifically to grow and to like, you know what I mean? To blow up and have everything work. But the quality suffers because you're trying to do too much. So it's like, you got to find the right balance, which is really difficult. So the next question I had was to ask you what drives you, but you kind of explained that, right? Like it's about trying to make people feel things.
Yeah,
you
man.
know, and it depends on like what the individual project is, but that's the kind of cool part about doing the different things that you do. You help the artist feel something, you know, which sometimes that's more the goal, you know what I mean? Yet other things can, you know, you can affect people in different ways. I want to ask, because that's obviously what you're trying to do, which I think is great. You know, a lot of people, this is another thing I'd explain when people talk about like money and they're like, why is it so expensive? And you explain like, look, I'm not really making much money. No. I want to always like try to push, and I've like never meet artists that do it for the money. No. Like that's not really why you do it.
Not the true artist.
No, exactly. No. And realistically, if you wanted to just make a lot of money, I don't personally think it's that hard to do. Like if you just work for a corporation or whatever, I made really good money at Verizon when I was 22. You can go do that. You don't have to have a college degree. No. You know what I mean? But to actually make good money, these people really love it and did it for free for a long, long time. So it's not about the money anyways. So what projects do you have going on right now? You obviously just said you edited a whole bunch. You're about to go to LA. What are the things that people are going to kind of see coming up with you?
That's a good question. A lot of, hopefully, portraits of artists, photo-wise, video-wise, music videos, commercials. Nothing's too specific, I guess. There's a few artists I've been working with, especially my friend TYSM, one of my best friends. Like I said, I had you play the song earlier. And then another one of my friends, his name is Grace. His artist name is Grace. So I think 2 each will be probably coming out eventually after this is released. 2 music videos. But I don't know, and that's kind of what I am excited about. I'm not too sure. There's a lot of just documentation that photo or video that I'll just try to keep doing, I guess. So, you know, that'll just get thrown out there in the world eventually. Stuff I think is good enough. But yeah, I don't have a lot of plans. I definitely have started kind of formulating a short film, like my first one. I had a friend of mine. That's kind of the end goal, by the way. Like I think movies. Not like blockbuster style, but you know. So I had a friend pass away, like one of my best friends, this past fall. So I want to do something kind of honoring her in a way, but not like specific to her story. Just something that kind of reminds me of her, or you know, tie like death into it, which is sad, but something like that. So I'm definitely gonna start working on that, but that's probably gonna be a long time before I do anything with that. So I don't know, man. I don't really have a ton of plans.
What's the LA one for? Is that for the music videos?
No, those are all ones I've either already shot or something else. LA, I'm going to work with like I think 2 or 3 brands, like mostly streetwear brands, like for photography, and then 1 music video, I think, and then just linking with like just some artists, like some Brockhampton guys, and just, you know, stuff like that, just hanging out and just taking pictures, really just trying to build more connections, enjoy the time, but also like shoot 15 rolls of film
sure.
or something, you know. Just it's a mix of it's definitely a work trip, but there's not a ton that's planned, I guess. Definitely just trying to see friends I have out there and make beautiful stuff, I guess. That's kind of the plan.
Yeah, but I mean, that's how it was on my last trip out to Hollywood. I think I had 4 interviews lined up.
Yep.
And I did 9.
Yep.
Because it's just kind of like I was going to go out, get some stuff done, and just be prepared to like, okay, I'll network a little bit, meet some new friends, and then create while I'm out there. That was the whole point. So I wasn't really drinking and stuff. It was just like I'm there to create, and cool things can come from it.
Probably the same thing is going to happen.
So that's what the direction you want to go into eventually, is be in movie stuff?
I think. I mean,
you're young, you can change your mind. But
yeah, well, I guess when I think of it is like I'll always want to do probably music videos and then some commercial ad type work. Also, I typically like to do very like unique or dramatic ad or commercial work. I'm not really into corporate ad stuff, obviously, stuff like that. It's more like as artistic as I can make it, or as good of a story I can make it. But I notice oftentimes with the music video, I'm telling a story. With an ad, I'm often telling a story. But guess what the original form of motion picture is? It's telling a story through a film. So I'm like, why don't I just make that the end goal? Because that's what I get most of the inspiration for videos, probably for movies, I guess, and music, and then sometimes like other people's work, other commercial work or something. But ultimately, it's like that's kind of what I'm obsessed with ultimately, just telling stories in general, and that's like the best way to do it. So I guess that seems to be the end goal. I don't know. We're gonna figure it out, but I'd love to combine everything really. But yeah.
So what are some things you'd really like to work on that you haven't had a chance to yet, or some people you'd like to work with that you haven't had a chance to?
Well, I think I made my first documentary when I was 18 or 19 or something, and it was just kind of about like the artists kind of just the direction, or mixed with like health, I guess, for people. So, and documentary, like that was fun, and I that one meant a lot to me. So I'd really like to make more documentary style work.
Where can we find that one?
I think that's like the first video on my website. Like I'm pretty sure if you just type in my website, it's just right there. It's called Your Way. Yeah, that was pretty meaningful to me. Just kind of, yeah, I guess just I highlighted some people sharing their experiences through art that are kind of in different mediums, and they just talk about what's important to them, and then like how they do things, I guess. But like I said, I'd like to do more documentary style work, and then I'd like to do more like short film style work. So those are two things I want to kind of work on. Another thing would be like another book. I mean, I don't know when it would be, but I'd love to. I mean, I just shoot so much that I just have so much stuff, and I'd love to figure out a way to mesh them and put it out. And then people-wise, someday I'd love to work. There's a director named Dexter Navy who does mostly music video and commercial. He's like, most of the A$AP Rocky's videos are him. He's directed them. They're wild. He's just an idea guy, dude. Like, he's just crazy. So probably him. I honestly don't know if that'll ever happen. I'd love to, but obviously I'm nowhere near that yet. So that'd be cool. Man, I don't know. I actually don't think about this too much, because usually when I want to work with someone, I just reach out. Like you said, I just try. And if it doesn't work out, then whatever. But I don't get too hung up. I try not to get too hung up on like a certain person, because, for example, I really, really like Kenny Hoopla's music. I'm sure you know. And I finally got to work with him, and I was like trying to work with him for like a year. And then I finally did, and I'm like, oh, that was sick. But I'm like, okay, well, I don't know, because he's one of my favorites. Like, I listen to him a lot. So that was cool, but it almost, like, everyone seems attainable to work with to me now. 2 years ago, impossible. But like you just said, when you go out to LA and you're doing interviews with these super famous people, it's like after that you're like, okay, well, I can interview anyone.
Right.
And
yeah.
So I'm like, well, I can photograph anyone. I can work with anyone. And that sounds boastful, but it's really just me being confident in myself and not being afraid to, like, you know how many times I hear no? Like today I'll probably hear no 5 times. Emails I've sent, or like sometimes I'll write a whole 10-page treatment out for a music video, and there's a meme page on Instagram. It's called like a director content or whatever. And it's just, today they posted one where this guy sent a 20-page treatment out, and it's like an outline for a music video. And then they're like, yeah, sorry, we like it, but we're going in a different direction. All this kind of thing. So that's a hard no, because you put so much time into that. But it's just here and now, here and now, here and now. And that's okay. Because if you just are persistent through it, then, you know, it'll work out. You'll get stuff you need. And eventually the people that said no, they're going to be like, damn, I should not have said no.
Well, yeah, hopefully, right?
Oh, yeah.
If you go back and listen to one of my favorite episodes is with Wayne Hoffman. So what you were just referring to is off mic, I was talking about how when I interviewed Wayne,
Yep.
he was like the first really established person. Well,
Yeah.
I mean, there were others, but he was really established. And
Yeah.
I had no real connection to him. And when I got done with that interview, I was like, whoa, I was confident through the whole thing. I wasn't
Yeah.
nervous. Like, this was dope. It's when you all of a sudden click and realize that, like, you meet enough of these people, because especially being from the places we are, we don't meet celebrities and famous people like ever.
No.
You know, so we put them on a pedestal in our brains that they're these like icons and whatever, and they are to a certain degree. And then you meet them and you realize they have the same faults and stuff that everybody else does. They're just like a regular person. And once you do that a few times, you get desensitized and like it doesn't bother you. You know, for me, it's like I haven't met that many and interviewed that many super famous people, you know, big in comparison to like Eau Claire following type people, but nobody, you know, not LeBron James kind of level. But but I've met
soon, bro.
Right, that's why I think so. But as it's come up, you know, I've noticed that everybody I interview, once I start talking to them, you know, I'm just doing the thing that I'm used to, and they're just another person, and I'm just asking them about their life. So like I'm pretty comfortable doing that too. And obviously, I'm sure there's going to be times where I interview somebody and it doesn't go the way I want to, and whatever. And what sucks is with the people that you really care, like you really want to interview them, what happens is you put them on a pedestal, and then when you meet them and you realize they're just regular people, it's almost slightly disappointing because you're like, damn, I like thought you were going to be incredibly
in the most respectful way. It's like disappointing just because, like you said, we're all humans, man. We're all the same. Like ultimately, I mean, everyone has tons of differences, but I just mean like we all live on Earth.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
Like I said, that's it. You put them up on a pedestal and you meet them and you realize that they are a regular person. Yeah. Disappointing is maybe the wrong word, but,
no,
but you know what I'm
saying,
talking about.
Bro. I get it.
Yeah. All of a sudden it's like, oh, okay, well, I don't need to put you on a pedestal. You are really cool and I'm still a fan, but like you're also just a regular person. Okay, so I always come up to this in my show. This is my favorite part of the show because people who pursue careers based on their passions, even if it's not your career really, like it isn't for you yet, you get to have really unique experiences because you're doing things you really care about and you're putting yourself in like different positions where stuff happens to you that like has a much more like stronger emotional attachment to you. It means something because you work so hard for it and you care so much. Can you share a unique experience, like something specific that happened to you that you're grateful for, but it only happened because you chose this path?
That's an amazing question. I would say it's kind of lame, but probably just like the sound set thing in general. Because around that time was when I was like, I'm going to pursue this. So then I just went crazy on emails trying to figure it out. And then it boosted everything so much for me, at least initially. So even though that's very lame in terms of an answer, I still think that's probably a good one.
Well, it's about putting in perspective, right? It's at this point you haven't worked with people like that, and you put out this email blast thinking, maybe. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I was like, probably won't happen.
Exactly. So. And then you get it back, and then all of a sudden what goes from you thinking you're going to like record and film this stuff with Sa-Roc, all of a sudden you have this all access pass and you're recording Snoop and everybody else and you're like, I'm sure in the moment you must have been like, like while you're filming Snoop you must be sitting there like
that was that was
here?
Something else though.
Oh, was it?
But like that was just like that's a long story, but I was like that with Lil Nas because that's right when Old Town Road was all famous, so that was so weird, bro, because Uzi was supposed to play and he canceled. So then they called Lil Nas and DaBaby like 5 hours before. Hey, like we'll give you whatever, so much money probably. So they come and then I'm sitting right there where he pulls up in the golf cart to his like changing area because Sa-Roc was doing an interview. I'm like, can I get a photo? And I just felt like such a goofball. He's like, yeah, for sure, bro. And I took like 5. And then he's just like, oh, bro, I like your jacket. And I'm like, okay. Thanks. Just point being though, I totally get what you're saying. Like, it's that was definitely a boosting thing where I didn't expect to be there. So yes, I guess that's good. But I just mean lame in the sense that I wanted it to like be more emotional, I guess. I don't know, just lots of times like really sad things kind of bring the best out in my work, which sucks. But you know, that's how it is. I mean, that's music, that's film, that's photography, painting, I mean, drawing, everything, man. Sadly. So, I don't know. I was kind of hoping it'd be some sad thing, but no, I'll go with that. I'll go with that.
I think that's a good one. I want to know what is the story with Snoop Dogg? How did that happen?
Okay. So I was, okay. I guess it's not that long of a story. I was just shooting a documentary for a guy in Minneapolis, and one of the shots he wanted to do, we went on like this rooftop, like Union, I think it's called, or something in the cities. I don't know. He just wanted to like get a shot of us or him just like seeing everyone, like dabbing everybody up, whatever. Also, I do not mind like saying this. That guy sucks. Honestly, like I won't say his name, but some of you listening were with me on the project and you will know he's so fake, bro. Like he has like, I don't mean to talk my shit, but you know, he's got like 100K on the gram, all fake, just super mean to us, like didn't pay us, all this, you know, so it's fine. I don't mean to talk. I'm just, you know, that guy was not the coolest. But while we were up there, what was cool is some random guy saw us with cameras and he's like, hey, I'm like a promoter and Snoop's having this like after party show next week. And he's like, can I see some of your work? And I'm like, yeah, sure. So I just like typed my thing in. He's like, oh yeah, you'd be perfect. Like, do you want to come next week and film? And I'm like, all right. I was like, I mean, of course, that'd be really cool. So I show up way early. They're like, who are you? And I'm like, oh, I'm here to shoot. And they're like, okay, so do you have a pass or something? I'm like, no. And I'm like, well, can I call the promoter? And then they're like, yeah. So I kept calling him just like last time. Didn't answer. Half hour later, calls me. Oh yeah, it comes and gets me. I go in. I'm like, whoa, this is weird, but cool. And it was like a weird after party with like 40 people and Snoop Dogg and just like strippers everywhere. It was the weirdest. I'm like, what did I get myself into? I thought it was like an actual show and it was not. So it was just like 40-year-old people, some like strippers and Snoop Dogg. And I think he smoked 10 blunts maybe. And the room was small enough, like it was kind of big, but it was small enough where I was like very secondhand high.
Oh God.
Yeah, it was.
So
yeah.
what'd you do with the footage? I mean, there's like a little video on your website with it.
Yeah. Well, they didn't. Okay, so like my digital camera, I forgot an SD for it for that. So I only have my VHS with me. So I was like, well, I guess we're going with this. I'm like, at least it fits his like vintage, like, you know, 90s hip hop vibe, whatever. So I filmed it and then I just kind of put it together, and I think they used it for their like Instagram, like the venue or something. But I mean, that's it. Like it wasn't, really, it's honestly not that cool. Like I got some cool photos of him and stuff, but I don't know. It was not that cool, honestly. Like it was just weird. I did not know. It was, oh man, that's all I gotta say. It was weird.
Sure, but at least you got to be there. I mean, that's kind of a ridiculous
it was sick.
story.
I mean, it was definitely sick, but yeah.
That's funny.
Yeah.
So people make mistakes along the way. Obviously, like hopefully you make them earlier on, so that way the consequences are less, such as like not having your SD card for this particular thing.
It's a little rough.
What besides that one? What was a mistake that you made that taught you something valuable that somebody listening right now might be able to benefit from?
Just like not caring. Okay, so I know I was just talking about all this equipment costs and everything, but ultimately I did a lot with bare minimum. So I find myself even still, I'm like, okay, I need to upgrade this, I need to upgrade that, I need to upgrade this. And I mean, it's important to do that, but when you're just starting out, it doesn't matter. Like it does not matter, because man, I had a very entry-level camera, but I knew how to use it. I knew everything about it. And if you get a $10,000 camera, you're not going to know what you're doing, and the footage will literally probably look like the other one, just because, I mean, yeah, it'll look better, but you just don't know what you're doing. Also, it comes down to lighting so much more. Like, those are kind of different, but point being is, when you're just starting out, equipment isn't really not that important. But I also don't agree with when people say that it doesn't matter, because it does, especially at the higher you go up. I mean, there's a reason Hollywood doesn't use terrible equipment, but when you're just starting out, it's not as big a deal as you'd think. So that's probably, I put a lot of money into things I don't really use that I thought I would, that like YouTube says I need to get or something, and then I'm like, oh man. So that's probably what I would say. And then also just learning on your own, like, yeah, it's okay to make mistakes, annoying saying, but it's so true. I've messed up so many things. It's ridiculous. Like I've broke someone's camera. I've lost a whole shoot footage.
What do you do when that happened? You just like contact the person whose camera it is and say, sorry?
Yeah, well, that was, no, I was like, he was like the DP and I was directing, and I just literally just dropped his camera and it broke. So I was right next to him and I'm like, well, so obviously I paid for it, but I didn't have the money. So I had to like pay him payment wise,
right? Payment
plan type of thing. And let's see, there's a lot of stuff I've messed. I could just go on about all the stuff I've messed up tons of rolls of film. I've shot, who did I shoot? I think it was most of my roll of Boz. I don't know if you heard of Boz. He's like on Dreamville. He's like, J. Cole and him worked together a lot. Lost a whole roll of film of him, or didn't lose it. It was blank because I exposed it to light. And then I also rewinded it weird because I didn't know how to use a camera. So there's a lot of really embarrassing things that I could talk about, but that's just, me trying to figure out how to do things. So,
most people are more understanding than you expect them to be. I know my friend Courtney lost a shoot and she was super upset about it. And this wasn't even for me, but she was talking to me about it. Well, she was talking to me about how she was really nervous to tell this person. Right. And I told her, look, people are human. If she's your friend, she'll understand. And she made it up to be this big, big thing. And she was super nervous. Yep. And then contacted her. And the girl was like, hey, mistakes happen.
Yep.
No big deal.
It does depend, though. Because
obviously, you don't want that to happen. Yeah. But you know what I mean?
Friend-wise or documentation-wise, it's fine. But any client thing you mess up like that is just the worst.
Well, yeah, you got to rededo it. You owe them. You sign a contract to produce something for them, and you have to somehow make it right.
Been there.
Well, and that's why I'm saying why it's so key to spend all this time learning ahead of time, because then you can make these mistakes when they aren't important. That's happened with me with the show. Yep. In the first season, I recorded a whole episode, and then my computer crashed, and I had to re-record the episode.
Yep.
Thankfully it was with my cousin, I could re-record it, but it would have been a lot worse depending on who the guest is, and then I learned okay, I need to have a separate hard drive for this. Okay, I need to make sure that I save right at the beginning, and I need to test this, I need to test that. And now, I'm sure I'll still make mistakes, but hopefully no huge one where
when you do get to record with LeBron, don't mess it up, bro.
Yeah, that's exactly
Knock on wood.
Yep, I gotta that. Yeah, that's exactly it. But I completely agree with you. So what I was talking about with the 10% thing earlier, and I don't remember if this was on mic or off mic, but I think when you get to a certain level, the difference between people who get super famous and are very B-list is that 10% difference. Yeah. Because everyone's good. It's just that little bit extra good. Yeah. Now, sometimes the equipment is what helps you get that extra 10%, which is why people spend all that money. However, at the very beginning, being 10% better, you can just get 10% better by skill. Yep. Having better equipment isn't going to make you much better. The significant difference is going to be in your own ability, which is why you need to continue to get better. And then another thing that I want to address and just push again to people is it's okay putting stuff out for yourself. You know what I mean? It depends on what you're trying to goal is.
That's honestly 3/4 of what I do.
Well, that's it, right? You put that book out, it's for you. And yes, your friends and other people around you enjoy it. The example I'm going to compare it to is we did a couple shop skateboard videos. Yep. I'm not going to sit here and pretend that any of us in Eau Claire are even on the same realm as the people who are good in Minneapolis.
Sure.
So
and then LA.
Right. And then people can say, well, then why even do a video?
Why not?
Because it was cool to us. And one of my favorite memories was when we had the video on the big screen downtown at the little budget theater.
I love that place.
You know what I mean? And everything's dark, and then my footage comes up and everyone's watching my part that I put this time into. Yeah. And I don't sponsor myself. I'm not that good. But putting that out, it was part of being this whole community thing. It's such a cool memory to me. And that was the only goal with it. It wasn't to get it on any other kind of level. So if you can enjoy something for what it is and what goal you were trying to do, that's all it needs to be.
100%. Man.
So moving forward, now that everyone's stoked, can you give a shout out of where they can find you again on Instagram and in general, how they can support you moving forward?
Yes, sir. So Instagram is just at @_SOYR. I get my name wrong too. And then website, just SawyerBrice.com. Support wise, just message me. Let's talk. I don't know. I like to help and be helped too. Like this, you're just literally just helping me. So appreciate it. But it's, I don't know. Just follow my stuff and just keep an eye out, I guess, Tell your friends. That'd be great.
Well, I think that this will be beneficial to both of us for sure.
Yeah, I know. I'm just saying it's cool that you put on so many people. I know that, you know, they do things too, but it's cool because this isn't you just talking the whole time saying, what am I thinking about today? It's, let me highlight these artists, these whatever, you know, all these other people. I can only think of artists, of course, but
well, I think it helps everybody, right?
It does.
Like,
I know.
Cool
I'm
part.
just, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
you know
yeah. Well, I very much
Appreciate
appreciate that. So thank you so much.
Of course.
And I always I throw that out there because people don't understand. They're always like, well, I don't have money. So yeah, there's a lot of ways you can support. One, you can support on Patreon for me, patreon.com/passionpod. $5 a month. That actually goes a really long ways. So that's dope. Passionpod.org. There's a bunch of merchandise you can buy. Like, that's one way to do it. But yeah, the easiest way that's totally free is just to share the stuff. You know what I mean?
Sharing is great.
Like, if you can share it to yours, think about it. Like, if you have however many thousand followers or whatever, if somebody else, one of your other friends, all they have to do is hit the little share thing when they have a video, and you just got another 500,000, however many people to see your content that never would see it. It's so simple for them to be able to support their friends, and I think they just don't think about it all that much. But it's like, dude, a lot of these people, if you were like, what would you, if you had to do one thing or the other, share my content or give me $5? A lot of people would say, oh, I'll just share it to my story. And you're like, dude, I'll literally pay you $5 to share it to your story. Can you just do that?
Yeah. And so, it's, you know, every single thing, like you commenting about my, you know, seeing like the dynamic aspect of things aren't always the same in the music videos and stuff. That means more to me than any money could be. I make things for myself, but ultimately I want people to like them, and I want people to feel things, and that's kind of the goal. But when people notice these kind of things, or even just tell someone else about it, it just means everything. Like, I don't know, that's really what we all care about, is trying to better. I think we all want to better the world in our own way, and I think sharing art especially is very powerful in that, and I think that's a really good way to do it.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of The Passion Pod. We hope you enjoyed it as much as we did. We'll see you soon.